The December ice turned the sidewalk into glass, and Maya Johnson Sterling's worn boots slipped with every step. She clutched 3-week-old Zara tighter against her chest, trying to shield her daughter from the freezing rain that fell like needles against exposed skin. Behind her, the townhouse door slammed shut with a finality that echoed down the quiet Philadelphia street. A street where she'd lived for 2 years, where neighbors knew her name, where she'd thought she belonged. Please, she'd begged just minutes ago, standing in the foyer of the home she'd helped choose, helped decorate, helped fill with hope. Marcus, it's freezing, the baby. But Marcus Sterling had looked at her with eyes she no longer recognized, cold, calculating, empty of the warmth that had once made her believe in fairy tales and second chances, and love that transcended the color lines his family had warned him about. You should have thought about the baby before you refused to sign, he'd said, his lawyer's voice delivering the words like a closing argument. His mother, Caroline Sterling, had stood behind him in her Chanel suit, arms crossed, satisfaction gleaming in her pale blue eyes. Now Maya stumbled down Rittenhouse Square, each step sending pain through her body that hadn't yet recovered from childbirth. 3 weeks postpartum, and she was still bleeding, still exhausted, still carrying an extra 40 pounds that made her pre-pregnancy clothes unwearable. The single duffel bag she'd managed to grab weighed on her shoulder like an anchor, filled with diapers and formula, and the few baby clothes she could reach before Marcus had physically blocked her path to the nursery. Her phone was dead. Marcus had canceled their family plan that morning. She'd discovered it when she tried to call her friend Keisha. No phone, no money. The joint account he drained 3 days ago sat at zero, every cent transferred to his personal account while she'd been sleeping off another night of Zara's colic. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. A car passed, its headlights cutting through the freezing rain, and didn't slow. Maya felt tears freeze on her dark skin, making her face ache. She'd been so careful, so hopeful when Marcus had proposed 3 years ago. He was different, she'd told herself. Not like the other white men who dated her as rebellion or fetish or temporary adventure. Marcus had seemed genuine, introducing her to his family despite their obvious horror, marrying her despite his mother's tears at the rehearsal dinner. She'd been so stupid. Zara stirred against her chest, making small, distressed sounds that meant she was cold, hungry, or both. Maya ducked under the awning of a closed bookstore, opening her coat to pull the baby inside against her body heat. Her daughter's brown face was screwed up in discomfort, tiny fists waving in protest. I know, baby girl, Maya whispered, her voice cracking. I know you're cold. Mama's going to fix this. Mama's going to. But what? What was she going to do? The women's shelter was 8 blocks away through an ice storm. Her best friend Keisha lived across the river in Camden. Impossible to reach without a phone or money for the train. Her mother had died when Maya was 16. Her father had disappeared long before that. And her uncle. Maya pushed the thought away. Uncle Jimmy had cut ties with the family 25 years ago, long before Maya was born. Her mother had spoken of him sometimes, voice tight with old pain. Your uncle made his choice, she'd say. Made his money, and forgot where he came from. Maya had never even met James Coleman, despite growing up 30 miles from his headquarters in Princeton. He was a ghost, a legend, a cautionary tale about ambition destroying family bonds. Another contraction of cold and despair squeezed her chest. She adjusted Zara's blanket with numb fingers and started walking again. 8 blocks. She could make 8 blocks. The ice storm had emptied the streets, but Maya felt eyes watching from warm windows, judgment following her, the black woman with a baby, stumbling through the freezing rain, clearly in crisis. She'd felt those eyes her whole life, had learned to hold her head high despite them. But tonight, 3 weeks postpartum, and kicked out by her husband, holding her head high felt impossible. Her body ached in ways she couldn't name. The bleeding was heavier than it should be. She knew that. The cramping in her lower abdomen, that had started yesterday morning, felt wrong. And the nausea that had woken her up every morning for the past week, she told herself it was stress, exhaustion, the trauma of watching her marriage disintegrate. But deep down, In a place she didn't want to examine, Maya knew the truth. She was pregnant again. 9 weeks, maybe 10. The timeline matched that last attempt at intimacy with Marcus before Zara was born, when she'd still believed her marriage could be saved. When she'd still thought love might conquer the subtle cruelties. The coded language, the way his mother looked at her like something that had contaminated the family bloodline. The irony made her laugh. A sound harsh and broken that startled Zara into crying. Maya was carrying Marcus Sterling's second child, while stumbling through an ice storm because his first child wasn't enough to make him honor his vows. A police car slowed beside her, and Maya's heart seized with a fear she'd carried her entire life. But the officer, a black woman, thank God, rolled down her window with concern rather than suspicion. "Ma'am, are you all right? Do you need help?" Maya wanted to say yes, wanted to collapse into the offered kindness and let someone else carry this weight for just a moment. But she'd learned young that accepting help from police, even kind police, meant questions, reports, systems that would look at her unmarried as far as they knew, homeless, with a newborn, and see a problem to be managed rather than a person to be protected. "I'm fine," she said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "Just heading to my sister's place, not far now." The officer looked skeptical, but nodded slowly. "Be careful out there. Ice is getting worse." After the patrol car pulled away, Maya allowed herself 30 seconds of breakdown. 30 seconds to cry and shake and feel the full weight of her situation crushing down. Then she pulled herself together, kissed Zara's forehead, and kept walking. The women's shelter appeared through the freezing rain like a beacon, a converted church with warm lights and a blue sign declaring safe harbor. Open 24/7. Maya had passed it dozens of times during her marriage, never imagining she'd need it. Never thinking she'd be the woman pushing through those doors with nothing but a baby and a duffel bag. Inside, the warmth hit her like a wall. Her frozen skin burned as sensation returned. A woman at the intake desk looked up, her weathered face softening immediately. "Oh honey, come here, get that baby warm. When did you eat last?" Maya tried to answer, but found she couldn't remember. Yesterday? The day before? Time had become elastic since Marcus served her with divorce papers 5 days ago, hours stretching and compressing in ways that made no sense. "I'm Sarah," the woman said, coming around the desk. She was older, maybe 60, with gentle hands that helped guide Maya to a chair. "You're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you. Let's get you both checked out, okay?" The medical exam happened in a blur. A nurse named Patricia, competent and kind, took Maya's vitals while another volunteer held Zara. Blood pressure too high. Temperature elevated. Signs of infection that made Patricia's mouth tighten with professional concern. "How many weeks postpartum?" Patricia asked, her dark hands gentle as she palpated Maya's abdomen. 3 weeks. 21 days. "And you've been under stress." Maya laughed again, that same harsh sound. "You could say that." Patricia exchanged a glance with Sarah. "Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. When was your last period before you gave birth?" The question hung in the air. Maya closed her eyes, doing math she'd been avoiding. "April, early April. And you gave birth November 23rd. "Yes. So, that's a normal timeline." "But, Maya," Patricia's voice was carefully neutral. "When was the last time you were intimate with your husband?" The truth came out in a whisper. "September. Late September. Maybe early October. I thought," her voice broke, "I thought maybe we could fix things. I thought." "You're pregnant," Patricia said gently. "I'd estimate about 9 weeks. We need to get you to a hospital for an ultrasound and make sure everything's okay." The words should have devastated her. Should have been the final crushing blow. But instead, Maya felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. A determination that felt like steel. Marcus Sterling had kicked out his wife and 3-week-old daughter into an ice storm. He'd drained their bank accounts and canceled her phone. He'd stood by while his mother called her that woman, and a mistake and worse things in coded language that everyone understood. But he'd made one catastrophic error. He'd given Maya nothing left to lose. And a woman with nothing to lose was the most dangerous kind of woman there was, I need to make a phone call, Maya said quietly. Just one call. Can I use your phone? Sarah handed over the office landline without hesitation. Maya stared at the numbers for a long moment, her finger hovering over the keypad. She'd sworn she'd never do this. Never reach out to the uncle who'd abandoned her mother, who'd chosen money over family, who'd disappeared into his billions and never looked back. But that was before Marcus's betrayal, before Caroline Sterling's smug satisfaction, before the ice storm and the shelter and the second pregnancy that made everything infinitely more complicated. Maya dialed the number she'd memorized from her mother's old address book, the one she'd kept, despite promising herself she'd never use it. A crisp voice answered on the second ring. Coleman Technologies, Executive Office. I need to speak with James Coleman, Maya said, her voice steadier than she felt. Tell him it's Maya Johnson, Grace Johnson's daughter. Tell him, she took a deep breath. Tell him I'm calling in a debt he didn't know he owed. The pause on the other end stretched long enough that Maya thought she'd been disconnected. Then the voice returned, professional veneer cracking slightly. Please hold, Miss Johnson. Mr. Coleman will want to take this call personally. As Maya waited, listening to hold music that probably cost more than her monthly salary, she looked down at Zara, sleeping peacefully in Sarah's arms. Her daughter deserved better than this. Deserved better than a father who could discard her like yesterday's news. They both deserved better. And Maya was about to make sure they got it. The line clicked. A man's voice came through, deep and cautious, and colored by an accent that spoke of North Philly streets no amount of money could fully erase. Maya? Baby girl. Is that really you? She closed her eyes against fresh tears. Uncle Jimmy. I need help. Where are you? She gave him the shelter's address, her voice breaking on the street name. The silence that followed felt heavy with calculation. Then, I'm 20 minutes away. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. And Maya? Yes? Whatever happened, whoever did this to you, they just made the biggest mistake of their life. James Coleman arrived in 17 minutes, not 20, and when he walked through the doors of Safe Harbor, he brought with him an energy that changed the entire atmosphere of the shelter. At 58, he stood 6'3", with the broad shoulders of someone who'd grown up playing street ball in North Philadelphia before computers became his game. His skin was the same deep brown as Maya's, his hair silver at the temples, and he wore a cashmere coat that probably cost more than most people's cars. But it was his eyes that caught her sharp, assessing and burning with a fury that made even Sarah take a step back. Two people flanked him. A woman in her 40s, wearing a tailored suit and carrying a leather bag that screamed lawyer, and a younger man with the alert posture of professional security. Jimmy's gaze found Maya immediately, and something in his expression cracked. He crossed the room in 3 strides and knelt beside her chair, his large hands hovering as if afraid to touch her. Grace's baby, he whispered, his voice rough. Jesus Christ, you look just like her. Maya had seen pictures of her mother as a young woman, beautiful, vibrant, full of life, before poverty and illness had worn her down. She'd never thought she resembled Grace Johnson much. But looking at Jimmy's face, seeing her mother reflected in his grief, she felt something break open in her chest. I'm sorry, she managed. I know you and Mama didn't. I know it's been... Don't. His voice was firm but gentle. Don't apologize for needing family. That's on me, baby girl. That's all on me. He stood, his jaw tightening as he took in her appearance, the damp clothes, the exhaustion, the postpartum weight, the baby sleeping in Sarah's arms. Where is he? Who? The man who put you here. The man who put his child out in an ice storm. Jimmy's voice dropped to something dangerous. Where is Marcus Sterling? Maya blinked in surprise. How did you... You think I don't know my own niece got married? You think I haven't been keeping tabs on you since your mama died? His expression was pained. I stayed away because Grace made me promise. Said I'd made my choice. Chosen money over family. And she didn't want my guilt money raising her daughter. But I never stopped watching, Maya. Never stopped making sure you were okay. The lawyer stepped forward, extending her hand. Diane Richardson. Mr. Coleman's general counsel and, as of tonight, your attorney. We're going to make this right. How much do you know? Maya asked quietly. Jimmy exchanged a glance with Diane. Enough. I know Marcus Sterling, Esquire, works for Whitfield and Associates, specializing in corporate law. I know his family has old money, the kind that comes with social connections and casual racism dressed up as cultural concerns. I know you got married 3 years ago at City Hall because his family refused to attend a church wedding. And I know. His voice hardened. I know he served you with divorce papers 5 days ago, the day after you came home from the hospital with his daughter. Maya felt tears slip down her cheeks. He took everything. The bank account, the house, my phone. His mother stood there and watched while she couldn't finish. The security guard spoke for the first time, his voice all business. Miss Johnson, did anyone witness the eviction? Neighbors, doormen, anyone who can verify what happened? The whole street saw, Maya said bitterly. Caroline made sure of that. She wanted everyone to know she'd won, that she'd gotten her son back from the black woman who trapped him. Good, Diane said, making notes. Public witnesses are exactly what we need. Now, I need to ask you some difficult questions. Did Marcus or his mother make any explicitly racist statements? Anything we can document? Maya thought back through 2 years of microaggressions, coded language, and plausible deniability. Nothing explicit. Just comments about my hair. Questions about whether I knew who my father was. Concerns about cultural compatibility. Caroline liked to tell people I was exotic looking, like I was a pet she was tolerating. That's a start, Diane said. We'll build the case piece by piece. But first, she looked at Jimmy. We need to get her to a hospital. Now. Jimmy's expression shifted to alarm. What's wrong? Is the baby? Zara's fine. Patricia, the nurse, interjected. But Maya needs immediate medical attention. She's showing signs of postpartum infection, and she glanced at Maya for permission. Maya nodded slowly. The truth was coming out anyway. And she's approximately 9 weeks pregnant with her second child. The silence that followed was profound. Jimmy closed his eyes, his jaw working. When he opened them again, the fury there was cold and calculated. Does he know? His voice was deadly quiet. No, Maya whispered. I only just realized myself. I thought it was stress, exhaustion. I didn't want to believe. So Marcus Sterling kicked out his wife, who was 3 weeks postpartum, and 9 weeks pregnant with his second child. Jimmy's words were precise, each one landing like a hammer blow. That's what we're dealing with. Diane was already on her phone, making rapid calls. I'm getting a medical team to Pennsylvania Hospital. Private suite, best OB/GYN on staff, full security. Nobody gets near her without going through us. Uncle Jimmy, I can't afford. He cut her off with a look. Maya, do you know what Coleman Technologies is worth? She shook her head mutely. $12 billion. We developed the security software that protects half the Fortune 500 companies in America. I haven't taken a salary in 10 years because I literally can't spend money fast enough. His voice softened. Your mama refused to let me help her, refused to let me be part of your life. Said I'd broken her heart when I chose my company over family. And she was right, I did. But Grace is gone now, and you're here. And I'll be damned if I let anyone hurt my family again. The possessive pronoun family hit Maya like a physical force. She'd been alone for so long, carrying everything herself, that the idea of someone else shouldering the weight felt almost foreign. I don't want revenge, she said quietly. I just want my daughter safe. You want justice, Jimmy finished. And baby girl, justice is exactly what you're going to get. Pennsylvania Hospital's private wing was a revelation. Maya had given birth to Zara in a shared room with industrial lighting and a TV that only got 3 channels. This suite had soft lighting, a private bathroom with a soaking tub, and windows that overlooked the city lights. Dr. Amara Okonkwo was a Nigerian-born OB/GYN with kind eyes and steady hands. She examined Maya with gentle efficiency, while Jimmy paced outside with Diane and a growing team of lawyers. Your uncle is terrifying, Dr. Okonkwo said with a small smile as she checked Maya's vitals. In a good way. The way that gets things done. I barely know him, Maya admitted. This is the first time we've met. Family is complicated. The doctor's hands were gentle on Maya's still swollen abdomen. But right now, let's focus on you and these babies. You've got a significant uterine infection that's causing the fever and cramping. We'll start IV antibiotics immediately. The bleeding is heavier than ideal, but manageable with medication. And the pregnancy? Dr. Okonkwo pulled over the ultrasound machine, squirting warm gel on Maya's belly. Let's take a look. The image that appeared on screen was grainy and surreal. A tiny peanut-shaped form, pulsing with life. Maya stared at it, feeling a complex tangle of emotions she couldn't name. There's your baby, Dr. Okonkwo said softly. Measuring right at 9 weeks, 2 days. Strong heartbeat 175 beats per minute. Everything looks healthy so far. Maya watched the flickering heartbeat, mesmerized. Is it safe? Being pregnant again so soon after giving birth. It's not ideal, the doctor admitted. Your body hasn't fully recovered from the first pregnancy. We'll need to monitor you closely. Make sure the infection clears completely. Watch for complications. But women have carried pregnancies successfully with shorter intervals. You're young, generally healthy. We'll take good care of you. After the ultrasound, after the IV was started and medications were flowing, Maya finally allowed herself to sleep. Real sleep, not the anxious half-consciousness she'd existed in for weeks. When she woke, dawn light was filtering through the windows, and Jimmy sat in the chair beside her bed, scrolling through his phone. Hey, she said softly. He looked up, his expression softening. Hey yourself, how you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck. But better than yesterday. Jimmy set down his phone. Zara's with a nurse who used to work in the NICU. She's got more credentials than most doctors. Your daughter is being spoiled rotten. Maya felt tears threaten again. Thank you for all of this. I don't know how I'll ever. You don't have to pay me back, Maya, your family. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. But I do need to tell you some things. About why your mama and I stopped speaking. About why I wasn't there when she died. Maya waited, letting the silence stretch. I grew up in Strawberry Mansion. Jimmy began, his voice quiet with memory. Your mama was 5 years younger than me, and I practically raised her after our parents died. I was 17, she was 12. I dropped out of school, worked 3 jobs, made sure she had food and clothes, and stayed in school. Mama never told me that part. Because what came next broke her heart. Jimmy's expression was pained. When Grace was 17, she got sick. Needed surgery we couldn't afford. I was working at this tech startup, just a junior programmer, but I developed a security protocol that the CEO wanted to buy. He offered me $200,000 and a partnership stake. That's good, isn't it? It was life-changing money. But there was a condition. Jimmy's voice went hard. I had to relocate to California for 3 years. Couldn't take Grace with me, she was still in high school, had friends, had her whole life in Philly. The CEO said it was company policy. No family relocations for junior partners. Maya understood before he said it. You chose the money. I chose her surgery. Jimmy corrected. I chose making sure she'd live. I chose setting up a trust fund so she'd never be poor again. I chose building something that could protect her forever. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. But Grace saw it as abandonment. She was 17, facing surgery alone, and her big brother, the only family she had left her for California and a tech company. Did you try to explain? Every day for years. But your mama was stubborn, proud. She refused my money, refused my help, refused to even speak to me. Jimmy's voice cracked. When she got pregnant with you, I found out from a private investigator I'd hired to keep tabs on her. I tried to reach out, tried to help, but she sent every letter back unopened. Said I'd made my choice, and she was making hers. Maya thought about her mother, Grace Johnson, who'd worked 2 jobs and raised her daughter alone, who'd been so proud and independent that accepting help felt like defeat. She thought about the bitterness that had colored Grace's few mentions of her brother, the way she'd spit his name like a curse. She never told me any of this, Maya whispered. She just said you'd chosen money over family. In her eyes, I did. Jimmy wiped his eyes roughly. When she got sick cancer, the doctors said it was too far gone. I flew in from California, but she wouldn't see me. Told the nurses to keep me out. I sat in that hospital waiting room for 3 days. And she died without ever letting me say goodbye. The grief in his voice was old but raw. Maya reached out, taking his hand. His fingers were warm and calloused, programmer's hands that had built an empire. I promised myself I'd watch over you, Jimmy continued. I'd keep my distance like Grace wanted, but I'd make sure you were okay. I paid for your college through an anonymous scholarship fund. When you got that job at the art gallery, I bought the building and made sure you got raises and opportunities. I've been there, Maya, in the background, in the shadows. But I was there. You've been watching over me for 12 years, and I never knew. Because that's what Grace wanted. She made me promise before she died through her lawyer, not to my face, that I'd stay away from you unless you needed me. Really needed me. His grip on her hand tightened. Last night, when you called, when I heard your voice for the first time since you were 16, that was the best and worst moment of my life. They sat in silence for a long moment, both processing decades of pain and misunderstanding. Finally, Maya spoke. I need to know something, Uncle Jimmy. Are you helping me because of guilt? Because of Mama? Or, I'm helping you because you're my family, he interrupted firmly. Because you're Grace's daughter and my niece, and those babies are my blood. I'm helping you because Marcus Sterling and his bigoted mother made the mistake of thinking you were alone in the world. And I'm going to show them exactly how wrong they were. A knock on the door interrupted them. Diane entered, followed by 2 more lawyers and a man in an expensive suit who carried himself with corporate authority. Maya, Diane said, I'd like you to meet Thomas Chen, head of our litigation department. He's put together a preliminary strategy that I think you should hear. Thomas opened a laptop, projecting information onto the wall screen. Miss Johnson, we've spent the night building your case. Here's what we have so far. The screen filled with photographs, documents, and video footage that made Maya's breath catch. Security footage from your street, Thomas explained, showing Marcus physically removing you from the house at 11:47 p.m. during an ice storm with a 3-week-old infant. Note the timestamp and weather conditions. The next image showed bank statements. Electronic records of Marcus draining your joint account $18,000 at 6:15 a.m. on the same day he served divorce papers. That's financial abuse and theft of marital assets. More documents appeared. Text messages between Marcus and his mother discussing the situation and getting rid of her before she causes more damage to the family reputation. Note, the dates these start 3 days after you gave birth. Maya stared at the evidence, her mind struggling to process the systematic nature of Marcus's betrayal. This wasn't impulse. This was planned, calculated, executed with legal precision. We also have this, Diane said quietly, pulling up an audio file. Voice recording from Marcus's law firm. One of the paralegals, a woman of color who's experienced similar treatment, was willing to record a conversation. Caroline Sterling's voice filled the room, cultured and cold. Marcus needs to end this farce of a marriage before that woman has any more of his children. Bad enough, she's contaminated our bloodline once. We need to act quickly, decisively. I've already spoken with our attorneys about the best way to minimize his financial exposure. Another voice, Marcus's mother, I know, but she just had the baby. The optics of divorcing her now, the optics of being tied to her for 18 years are worse. Caroline interrupted. Black single mothers are a stereotype, Marcus. She'll fit right in. Meanwhile, you can find someone appropriate. Someone who understands our world. The recording continued for several more minutes, detailing a strategy of isolation, financial control, and public humiliation designed to force Maya out of the marriage with nothing. Maya felt something cold and hard crystallize in her chest. This was what they thought of her. This was how little her humanity mattered to people who saw her skin color before they saw anything else. We have them, Thomas said with quiet satisfaction. Racial discrimination, Financial abuse. Violation of the Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act because you were technically on maternity leave when he terminated your access to marital assets and constructive eviction. Not to mention the public relations nightmare this will create for Whitfield and Associates when it becomes public that one of their attorneys evicted his black wife and newborn during an ice storm. What's the plan? Maya heard herself ask. Jimmy smiled, and it was the most dangerous expression Maya had ever seen. The plan is simple. We destroy him. Systematically, publicly, and so completely that Marcus Sterling becomes a cautionary tale. Uncle Jimmy. No. His voice was firm. These people hurt my family. They put you and my great-niece in danger. They planned it, executed it, and felt no remorse. He stood, his presence filling the room. Tomorrow, we start the counterattack. But tonight, you rest. You heal. You let me handle this. As the legal team filed out, discussing strategy and timelines, Maya lay back against the pillows and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this hospital, Zara was sleeping peacefully, unaware that her entire world had shifted. And inside Maya's body, another baby was growing, another child who would be born into this war. But for the first time since Marcus had handed her those divorce papers, Maya didn't feel helpless. She felt dangerous. And Marcus Sterling was about to learn that the woman he'd thrown away like garbage was actually a Coleman. And the Colemans didn't break. They won. Maya spent 3 days in Pennsylvania Hospital's private wing, watching winter rain streak down floor-to-ceiling windows while antibiotics cleared the infection, and her body began healing from the trauma of the past month. Each day brought small revelations about the life she'd stumbled into. The first morning, a stylist named Andre arrived with racks of clothes in various sizes, all designer labels that Maya had only seen in magazines. He measured her with professional efficiency, never commenting on her postpartum body, and returned that afternoon with maternity wear that somehow made her look elegant rather than swollen. Your uncle said you're going to need clothes for the next 7 months, Andre explained, hanging silk blouses and cashmere sweaters in the suite's closet. We'll adjust as your body changes. And honey, he paused, meeting her eyes in the mirror. You're going to be stunning. Trust the process. The second day brought Rebecca Kim, a social worker who specialized in domestic violence cases. She sat with Maya for 2 hours, documenting every detail of the past 2 years with Marcus, the microaggressions, the isolation from friends, the way Caroline had slowly poisoned her son against his wife. This is textbook coercive control, Rebecca said, her voice gentle but firm. Financial abuse, social isolation, using the baby to manipulate you. The racial element makes it even more insidious because they can hide behind plausible deniability. His mother never called me the N-word, Maya said quietly. She was too smart for that. But she called you urban and exotic and made comments about your hair being unprofessional when you wore it natural. She questioned your parenting abilities before Zara was even born. She made sure you knew you didn't belong in their world. Rebecca made notes with quick, angry strokes. That's racism, Maya. Just because it's not screamed doesn't make it less violent. The third day, Dr. Okonkwo cleared her for discharge with strict instructions, bed rest for another week, no stress, prenatal vitamins, and follow-up appointments every 2 weeks, given the complicated situation. Your body has been through significant trauma, the doctor said, her Nigerian accent lending weight to her words. Not just physical, emotional, psychological. You need time to heal on all levels. Jimmy appeared in the doorway as the doctor left, carrying Zara in a designer baby carrier that probably cost more than Maya's first car. His expression, when he looked at his great niece, was so tender it made Maya's chest ache. She's perfect, he said softly, adjusting Zara's tiny pink hat. Looks just like you did as a baby. Grace showed me pictures once, before everything went bad between us. Where are we going? Maya asked, watching him cradle Zara with surprising expertise for someone who'd never been a father. Home, my home, well, he smiled. Our home now, if you'll have us. Jimmy's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower in Center City, with views that stretched from the Delaware River to the Schuylkill. Maya stood in the foyer, still weak but steadier on her feet, and felt like she'd stepped into a different universe. The space was modern but warm hardwood floors, exposed brick, art on the walls that she recognized from her gallery work. A Kehinde Wiley portrait dominated one wall, a Jacob Lawrence series hung in the hallway, and through the open concept living area, she could see a Faith Ringgold quilt mounted like the masterpiece it was. "You collect black artists," Maya breathed, moving toward the Ringgold with reverent steps. "I collect excellence," Jimmy corrected. "But yeah, I got tired of seeing white faces on every wall in every rich person's house I visited. Figured, if I had money, I'd spend it supporting people who looked like me." A woman emerged from the kitchen late 40s, elegant in casual clothes, with warm brown skin and locks swept into an elaborate updo. She smiled at Maya with genuine warmth. "You must be Maya. I'm Simone, your uncle's house manager. I've prepared the guest suite for you and set up a nursery next door. Everything you need should be there. But if you want changes, just say the word." The guest suite was larger than the apartment Maya had shared with Marcus before they bought the townhouse. A king bed with soft linens, a sitting area with a gas fireplace, and windows that let in winter light without the harshness. The adjoining nursery made her throat tight a crib that looked like it came from a palace, a changing table stocked with every product imaginable, and a rocking chair positioned by the window. "I may have gone overboard," Jimmy admitted, watching her take it all in. "Simone tried to stop me, but it's perfect." Maya turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "Uncle Jimmy, I don't know how to thank you. I don't know how to. You don't have to do anything except heal." He guided her to the rocking chair, his hand gentle on her shoulder. "You and those babies are safe now. That's all that matters." But Maya could see the calculation in his eyes, the cold fury that never fully left his expression. Jimmy Coleman hadn't built a $12 billion empire by being soft. He'd done it by being smarter, faster, and more ruthless than everyone else. "What are you planning?" she asked quietly. He smiled, and it was terrifying. "Come on. I want to show you something." Coleman Technologies headquarters occupied a converted warehouse in Princeton, all exposed steel and glass walls that showcased the cutting-edge technology within. Jimmy's private elevator required biometric scanning palm print, retinal scan, and voice recognition before it would ascend to the executive floor. "Security software is what we do," Jimmy explained as the elevator climbed. "Banks, hospitals, government agencies. If it needs protecting, we protect it. We also develop AI systems for fraud detection, pattern recognition, and data analysis." The doors opened onto a floor that looked like something from a science fiction film. Screens everywhere, showing code and data streams and security systems from around the world. People worked at standing desks, most of them young, almost all of them people of color. "I hire different," Jimmy said, noting Maya's observation. "I hire people who've been overlooked, underestimated, told they don't fit the tech world's image. Turns out, when you give brilliant people a chance, they build brilliant things." He led her to a glass-walled conference room where Diane waited with Thomas Chen and 3 other people Maya didn't recognize. "Maya, meet your war counsel," Jimmy said, his voice carrying dark amusement. "Diane, you know. Thomas handles litigation. This is Sandra Washington, our head of corporate acquisitions. Marcus Kim, no relation to Thomas, runs our private investigation division. And Angela Foster directs our PR and media strategy." Sandra was a black woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. "Miss Johnson, we've spent the past 3 days analyzing Marcus Sterling's financial and professional situation. Would you like to hear what we found?" Maya settled into a chair, Zara sleeping against her chest in the carrier. "Tell me everything." Sandra pulled up a presentation that made Maya's head spin. Marcus Sterling works for Whitfield & Associates, a mid-size corporate law firm with approximately $45 million in annual revenue. His salary is $250,000 base plus bonuses. He owns 15% of the townhouse you shared. His parents own the rest, using it as an investment property and tax shelter. "I didn't know that," Maya said quietly. "He told me we bought it together." You paid rent to his parents through the joint account, Sandra continued. Effectively, you were his parents' tenant while believing you were a homeowner. That's fraud, by the way. Thomas took over. Marcus's law firm has 6 major clients that generate 80% of their revenue. 3 pharmaceutical companies, 2 tech startups, and 1 healthcare system. We've identified vulnerabilities in each relationship. Vulnerabilities? Maya asked. Jimmy leaned forward. His expression predatory. Coleman Technologies provides security software to all 3 pharmaceutical companies. We're in the process of renegotiating our contracts. Part of those negotiations will include recommendations for legal counsel. The implications sank in slowly. You're going to take away his clients. We're going to offer his clients better options, Jimmy corrected. It's just good business. The fact that it destroys Marcus Sterling's career is simply a happy coincidence. Marcus Kim, the head of private investigations, opened his laptop. We've also been digging into Caroline Sterling's background. Your mother-in-law has some interesting secrets. Images appeared on the Screen Society pages, charity galas, and then older photos that made Maya lean forward. Caroline Sterling, née Caroline Whitfield, grew up in Chestnut Hill, old Philadelphia money, from her father's medical practice. But here's what's interesting. Marcus pulled up a newspaper clipping from 1985. Her father, Dr. Richard Whitfield, lost his medical license for refusing to treat black patients. He claimed it was about cultural competency and specialized practice, but the medical board found evidence of explicit racial discrimination. Maya stared at the yellowed newsprint, seeing Caroline's father, a distinguished white man in a suit standing outside a courthouse. Caroline spent her teenage years watching her father fight civil rights lawsuits. Marcus continued. She testified in his defense, claimed the complaints were misunderstandings, and that her father was being persecuted for his beliefs. The family lost everything: the medical practice, their country club memberships, their social standing. So she married into money to rebuild her status, Maya said slowly. Exactly. Robert Sterling's family has old money, but not much of it enough for appearances, not enough for security. Caroline has spent 30 years clawing her way back into Philadelphia society. Sandra's smile was sharp. And now her son has married and impregnated a black woman, twice. Angela Foster, the PR director, spoke for the first time. Her voice was cultured, her white skin and blonde hair a contrast to the rest of the team. Miss Johnson, I used to work in crisis management for Fortune 500 companies. I specialized in making scandals disappear. But sometimes, her smile was cold. Sometimes the best PR move is to make sure everyone knows the truth. What are you suggesting? Maya asked, though she was beginning to understand. I'm suggesting we tell your story. Angela replied. Pregnant black woman evicted during an ice storm by her white husband and his racist mother. Evidence of premeditation, financial abuse, discrimination, all documented, all verifiable, all devastating. Marcus will lose everything, Maya said quietly. Marcus chose to wage war on someone who had family, Jimmy corrected. He just didn't know it yet. Diane opened a thick folder. Maya, we need to discuss the divorce proceedings. Marcus filed in Pennsylvania, citing irreconcilable differences and requesting full custody of Zara based on your unstable housing situation. The words hit like a physical blow. He's trying to take my baby? He's trying. He won't succeed. Diane's voice was iron. We're filing a countersuit in federal court alleging civil rights violations, financial abuse, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We're also petitioning for full custody for you, supervised visitation for Marcus, and we're seeking punitive damages in the range of $10 million. Maya's head spun. $10 million? We're going to prove systematic abuse based on racial animus, Thomas explained. Pennsylvania law allows for significant damages in civil rights cases. And Maya, he met her eyes. We're going to win. How can you be so sure? Jimmy stood, moving to the windows that overlooked Princeton's downtown. Because I spent 25 years building an empire specifically, so I'd have the power to protect my family. Because I learned from losing grace that sometimes you have to be willing to burn the whole world down to save the people you love. He turned back to her, his expression fierce. Marcus Sterling hurt my niece. He put my great-niece in danger. He thinks his old money and his white skin make him untouchable. But they don't, Maya whispered. Not even close. That evening, Maya sat in the nursery at Jimmy's penthouse, nursing Zara while watching the city lights flicker below. Simone had prepared dinner, Caribbean food that tasted like home, like memories of her mother's kitchen, before illness had stolen Grace's strength. Her phone, the new one Jimmy had given her, with a number Marcus didn't know, buzzed with a text from Keisha, her best friend who'd been frantically trying to reach her for days. Girl, where are you? Marcus called me asking if I knew where you went. Told him to seek himself. You okay? Asterisk. Maya smiled and typed back, I'm safe. Long story. Can you come to Center City tomorrow? I need to see a friendly face. The response was immediate. Address me. I'll be there. Another buzz. This time from Diane. Marcus's attorney just received our countersuit. He's requesting an emergency meeting. We declined. Maya thought about Marcus right now, probably in his parents' townhouse, realizing that the woman he discarded wasn't going quietly into the night. Realizing that something had shifted in the power dynamics he'd taken for granted. Good. Let him panic. Let him wonder. Let him start to understand what was coming for him. A soft knock made her look up. Jimmy stood in the doorway, holding a framed photograph. Found this in storage, he said quietly, handing it to her. Thought you might want it. The photo showed Grace Johnson at 22, laughing in a park somewhere, her arm around a younger version of Jimmy. They looked happy, united, like nothing could break their bond. I miss her every day, Jimmy said, his voice rough. Miss what we could have been if I'd made different choices. If she'd let me explain. If we'd both been less proud and more forgiving. Maya set down the photo and reached for her uncle's hand. She'd be proud of you, Uncle Jimmy. Proud of what you built, who you became, how you're protecting us now. You think? I know. Maya squeezed his fingers. Mama was stubborn and hurt and angry. But she loved you. She never stopped loving you, even when she couldn't forgive you. Jimmy's eyes shone with tears he didn't shed. I'm not going to let you down, Maya. I'm not going to let anything happen to you or those babies. I swear on Grace's memory. I know. And she did. Whatever came next, whatever battle they were walking into, Maya knew she wasn't alone anymore. She had family. And the Colemans took care of their own. Across the city, in a townhouse that suddenly felt like a trap, Marcus Sterling stared at the legal documents that had just destroyed his evening. His mother sat across from him, her face pale beneath her careful makeup. This is impossible, Caroline said, her voice shaking. Maya doesn't have resources for attorneys like this. Diane Richardson doesn't take cases for nobodies. Apparently, she does now, Marcus replied, scanning the filing with growing dread. Civil rights violations, financial abuse, racial discrimination, 10 million in damages. This is extortion, Caroline hissed. She's trying to. Mother, we kicked her out in an ice storm with a 3-week-old baby. Marcus's voice was hollow. We drained her bank account. He stopped, seeing the other notation on the filing. Jesus Christ. What? She's pregnant, 9 weeks. He looked up at his mother, horror dawning. She was pregnant when we threw her out. We evicted a woman who was postpartum and pregnant. Caroline's face hardened. She probably made that up to gain sympathy. But Marcus knew Maya wasn't a liar, knew it with the same certainty he'd once felt about loving her, back before his mother had poisoned everything with her casual cruelty and coded racism. What had he done? More importantly, who was helping Maya wage this war? His phone rang. Alan Whitfield, senior partner at his firm. Marcus, we need to talk, now. 20 minutes later, Marcus sat in Whitfield's office, watching his boss pace with barely contained fury. 3 of our biggest clients just received calls from Coleman Technologies, Whitfield said, his voice tight. Calls, suggesting they might want to reconsider their legal representation, given recent concerns about diversity and inclusion practices. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Coleman Technologies, the security firm? The $12 billion security firm run by James Coleman, who apparently takes issues of racial discrimination very seriously. Whitfield fixed Marcus with a look of pure fury. What the hell did you do, Sterling? Who did you piss off? I don't know any James Coleman. I've never even heard of. Well, he's heard of you. And he's systematically dismantling your career. Whitfield threw a folder across the desk. That's the letter from Pharmatech, our second largest client. They're terminating our relationship effective immediately, citing concerns about our firm's commitment to diversity. Marcus opened the folder with shaking hands, reading words that felt like a death sentence. Figure out who this Coleman is and how to make him stop, Whitfield said coldly. Or find another firm, Marcus. Because I will not let your personal drama destroy what I've built. Alone in his office, an hour later, Marcus Googled James Coleman and felt the world tilt beneath him. James Coleman, founder and CEO of Coleman Technologies. Net worth estimated at $12 billion. Princeton resident. Philadelphia native. Known for philanthropy, supporting black communities, and aggressive stance on corporate diversity. He clicked through images, a tall, distinguished black man in his 50s, shaking hands with senators and tech CEOs, speaking at conferences, accepting awards. And then, buried several pages deep, he found it. A 25-year-old news article about Coleman's sister, Grace Johnson, dying of cancer. The article mentioned that Grace left behind a teenage daughter, name withheld for privacy. Maya. Maya's uncle was James Coleman. Maya's family had $12 billion. And Marcus Sterling had kicked her out into an ice storm. He barely made it to the bathroom before he vomited, his body's revolt matching the horror spreading through his mind. What had he done?